Hey there, my friends. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project and the Fit Mother Project podcast. Today, we're joined by guest expert Steven Muñatones, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called KAATSU. And I'm personally very connected to this episode and everything we're about to do because KAATSU is a device and a particular style of training that's often referred to as blood flow restriction training. And it's using very well-calibrated device to cut off blood flow to certain muscles. And what we found is when you exercise with blood flow restriction, you can use very light weights and build a lot of muscle, rehab from injuries. And we're going to get into the deep and powerful effects of this type of training, as well as that's very accessible with KAATSU. And KAATSU is amazing, and Steven's been using this with a lot of high-level organizations, including the Department of Defense, NASA, CIA, FBI, dozens of NFL, NBA, and NHL, MLS teams, and over 80 universities. And Steven's taught KAATSU applications to everyone, including Navy SEALs and Olympic gold medalists. And outside of just how awesome KAATSU is and blood flow restriction training is, I think it's really interesting to learn more about Steven's background. Steven, you are basically like a swimming master, and I want to read this from your bio because it's so cool. You were an NCAA Division I water polo player and a swimmer. You hold a Guinness World Record, and you're also in the Ice Swimming Hall of Fame, USA Swimming National Team. You were a coach, and you were also commentator for the 2008 Beijing Olympics for NBC. So, wow, you've had a pretty interesting life, my friend. I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm excited to learn more about you, but also blood flow restriction training.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here.
So give us a little bit, just a brief personal background, just because I think it's interesting to hear about your athletic endeavors, swimming, and then kind of how you found your way to KAATSU.
Yeah. So I grew up in Southern California. I was a swimmer, water polo player. I was really in the epicenter of aquatic sports in the 70s and 80s. So everybody from Olympic gold medalists, you name it, they were training in the same pool that I was. So as a kid growing up, you don't think when there's an Olympic gold medalist that you see every single day, it isn't a big deal. You just assume that you similarly need to aspire to that level.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't as quick, I wasn't as big, I wasn't talented as the Olympic medalists, but their mindset was very important that they shared with me. It was a self-confidence. It was even after they won one gold medal, it was always this, how can I get better? Mm-hmm. It was never, of course they were satisfied with their victories, but it was always, what does it take to go to the next level? And that mindset permeated in my youth, in high school, college, and beyond. So for that, I'm very appreciative of all the teammates and others around me that I saw growing up.
Nice. And how did you come to know about blood flow restriction training, the work of Dr. KAATSU and all the stuff like that?
Yeah. So in 2001, the World Swimming Championships were held actually in Japan. And my old high school coach calls me up out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him for 20 plus years. And he said, Steve, the World Championships are in Japan. I said, I know, I always follow the sports, coach, you've done a great job. And he goes, but I'd like you to be part of the team. And he wanted me a part of the team because he knew I could speak, read, and write Japanese. And there was nobody on the staff who could do that. And he taught me everything I know about swimming. So I said, sure, coach, I'd love to do that. When I went there, I saw athletes using bands around their arms and legs. And I would I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen it at the U.S. Olympic Training Center. My own coach, who is the U.S. Olympic coach, and nobody had ever seen that. And it was there that I was introduced to Dr. Sato, the inventor of KAATSU. And I went up to him. I spoke to him in Japanese, and I said, what is this KAATSU thing, and how do you do it? He showed me, and I was immediately taken by it. And I said, Dr. Sato, I'd love to learn how to do this. And he said, I was looking for someone like you who lives overseas, who understands Japanese, and I can teach you. I said, great, Dr. Sato, I'm returning back home to be with the team. And I said, is there any book, anything that I can take with me so I can read and learn more? And he says, it's all up here in my head. again, this was early on. So over the next 13 years, he mentored me. I went back to Japan 4 to 6 times a year. He took me to the hospital wards. He took me to the sumo dojos. He showed me the Olympic athletes. But more importantly, he showed me how most of the users in Japan and most of the users currently of KAATSU are people over the age of 50. Mm-hmm. That was a market that he really zeroed on. Although he did work with professional baseball players and Olympians, etc., it was really those people between the ages of 50 and 70 who were in the second half of their life. Mm-hmm. And he showed me very methodically, as Japanese tend to do, really how to get the best out of the equipment in order for someone to not interrupt their daily life and gain muscle tone, improve their vascular elasticity, get a robust hormonal response. And it took 13 years. At the end of 13 years, 2014, he says, I think you understand many things. Go ahead and start introducing KAATSU outside of Japan.
Cool.
Long story to a
That's
short
beautiful.
question.
No, it's really beautiful how it all came about. I think it's powerful that you went through a really deep mentorship. So now let's get into like what it is. Like, what is KAATSU? What is blood flow restriction training? Practically speaking, what is it?
Yeah. So KAATSU, the word itself means additional pressure. Mm-hmm. Probably many people know the word shiatsu, or they heard of shiatsu. Shiatsu is a type of massage. Shi means hand in Japanese. Atsu means pressure. Mm-hmm. KAATSU, Ka means additional. Atsu means pressure. So additional pressure. And you use these bands here. I have one here, and they go around either your arm or leg. And I have one on my arm here. And it's connected, depending on the model that you have, to a small control unit. And this control unit, it has a battery, a compressor, and a circuit board inside, sort of the brains of what we have here. And it shoots in air into the band. And the band then inflates for 30 seconds, deflates for 5 seconds. Inflates for 30 seconds, deflates for 5 seconds. At progressively incremental amounts. Mm-hmm. So what happens is your arterial flow, so the flow from your torso out to your hand or out to your foot, remains unimpeded. So blood continues to go into your hands or your feet, depending on if the band is on your arms or legs. When the band inflates, what happens is the venous return, or the return of blood from your hand or feet back to your torso, is for 30 seconds modified. In other words, slowed down. The vein actually is compressed slightly. What happens is the blood goes in and it stays around a little longer than normal. And when that happens, you can sort of see the effect we have here. Yeah. For those of you who can't see it, I have a band on one hand and not a band on the other. And so you can see my normal skin color on the palm of your hand. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's much pink. It's rosy. What's happening is the blood is being engorged into the very, very small capillaries. Mm-hmm. And that is what the equipment does. That's the only thing that the equipment does. Now, after that occurs, and whether it's, you can see the vascularity in the hand with the KAATSU band and not the vascularity on the other hand, when that happens, the body believes that the limb with the band on it is exercising. It's actually, metabolically speaking, it is exercising. Yeah. The vascular tissue is expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting, as if I was doing a push-up, as if I was doing a pull-up or a burpee or whatever you want to do. So sitting here, talking to you, or sitting in my office, pounding out emails, reading a book, watching Netflix, whatever it is, I can have the bands on my arms or legs, and that is replicating the physiology of exercise. And that, in a word, is what the word is, what the equipment is, and what it does.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and I'll harken back to my experience as a bodybuilder when I was trying to maximize hypertrophy. I was always the understanding that there's a couple ways to do it. One is through mechanical stress and tension, like lifting very heavy weights, heavy motor unit recruitment, tearing down muscles and getting that rebuilding response. But there's also metabolic stress, which is, I think, kind of what the blood flow restriction in KAATSU does. It's stretching the capillaries and creating the metabolic environment, slightly hypoxic, as if you were doing intensive exercise. And that too, in its own right, stimulates hypertrophy. And I found it fascinating that people could do the KAATSU with like 5 or 10 pound dumbbells and like produce muscle gains without creating a lot of joint damage or stress. Can we speak into that for the performance side of it a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So that actually is how our Olympians or our professional athletes in the various professional leagues use KAATSU. Typically, they'll get injured. It could be something as simple as a broken finger, a cracked rib. It could be a pectoral muscle pull. It could be a tendon rupture, whatever it is. As their body is recovering from those injuries, as a professional athlete or as a NCAA Division I athlete or Olympian, they're asked not to lift weights, not to do their normal training exercises. So in those cases, because you've got a tear or rupture or break, whatever you have, you can still go through the motion of the actual exercise. So let's say I injured my rib cage or my shoulder in some way. I could still do the equivalent of a bench press.
Yeah.
I don't even need the bar. I could just put my hands and go through the motion.
Yeah.
And that is creating the metabolic stress that you were talking about earlier that enables me not to atrophy.
Yeah.
So typically, if you've got a break, a rupture, a tear, you're going to atrophy to a certain extent because you have a cast on, or the physician has said you keep the limb immobilized. And so especially if you're a professional athlete, but even if you're a working mom or dad, you don't want to atrophy. And so in these cases, we teach people how to, let's say they have tendonitis or a broken arm in some way. They can put the band on, as I did here, the upper arm, and simply open and close their hand. We have seen time and time again, and this is what really blows away orthopedic surgeons, is that they have a person, they put a cast on their arm or leg. The individual does KAATSU. When they take off the cast, not only is there no atrophy, in some cases, that arm, which they were doing KAATSU on, is actually bigger than their other arm. And so, it's quite novel, it's convenient. And so that's why we've had a lot of acceptance by our, special forces in the military or our very competitive athletes.
And what I love about it too is it can be done daily. It's not taxing the nervous system in a very big way like it would be if you did squats or deadlifts for many sets. And it can be paired. So I think for someone who's really looking for physical optimization, let's say there's a guy listening to this who's would like to have some bigger arms, and you're still doing your normal strength training, you could easily add in KAATSU or blood flow restriction on several other days, and it can go along. It's not going to make you super sore, but you're getting a training effect. So it seems like a good application of that.
Absolutely. And we see it time and time again, especially in, the athletic field, where it could be a high school boy or girl who wants to make their varsity team.
Yeah.
Or a college athlete who's going to go to the NFL combine, or simply an adult who wants to do a triathlon or a mud run or whatever. And they have a short time window in order to perform. And that in that short time period, typically, let's say if you're weightlifting, you wouldn't lift hard every single day.
Right.
But with KAATSU, you can exercise intensely, because when you're lifting heavy weights, you're creating micro trauma.
Yep.
You're tearing those muscle fibers with KAATSU. And if you're doing the air bench press or the air bicep curls, you're not tearing anything. So you can do that daily. You could do it twice daily.
Yeah.
And that's how these people with a short performance, short training time window can perform better than they expect.
That's really cool. And I want to ask you, the way I always use KAATSU, and he'd probably be mad at me for how it was, but it wasn't actually KAATSU. I was taking squat wraps back in the day and just literally wrapping my arm as much as I could. And it's not great because your device opens and closes and enables you to go a lot longer. And mine was just an unscientific compression, but it definitely created good effect. You can target you get a systemic effect, right? So I mean, like, so I have a broken rib, but where do I put my KAATSU bands? On my arms, on my legs, like, and how does that translate? And how do you really do it with the trunk as opposed to the extremities? Everyone can imagine you can wrap a leg or an arm, but like, what do you do if you have something in the core? How does it apply?
So in the core, very interesting. You can actually we recommend you put the bands on your upper legs, but you can do it on your arms. But the upper legs, we recommend because the muscularity, the muscle mass and the vascularity on your legs is more than your arms. And so you get more bang for the buck for every minute of usage. So in that case, building your core, which we have in numerous athletic endeavors, wrestling, boxing, water polo, even track and field, bobsledding, you name it, the core is very central, no pun intended, to the athletic performance. So in these cases, we put the bands on their upper legs. You can do 3 very simple exercises, even while the athlete is resting or you're in your cubicle or at your home. And that is 1, put the band on your leg, sit up straight, very, very straight. Engage the core, keep your shoulders back with a straight spine. Hold that position as the bands are inflating and deflating for as long as you can. A lot of people, when they first try it, are pretty amazed how taxing that is. So that's one very easy thing anybody could do at their home or work. The second thing is actually put a book on your head. Simply walk back and forth in your living room, in your office, whatever. Again, shoulders back, straight spine, and try to keep that book on your head. And again, you're walking with great posture. You don't have to run. You don't have to walk fast. You just walk with good posture. Again, that's engaging your core. And the third exercise that a lot of people do like, especially the older people, especially older men, I would say over the age of 60, who are a little bit iffy on their balance. And that is put the bands on your legs and try to balance on one foot. Many of the men, older men especially, you have to be careful. So you hold on to a chair, a table, or the wall. But over time, their leg, one leg that you're balancing on gets very strong. But you're also engaging the core just by trying to balance. Women just anecdotal observations are better at balance. In their cases, we have them balance on one foot and then grab 2 water bottles and move them asymmetrically. And it's amazing to me when I see people who dance well, whether it's a professional dancer or someone who just enjoys dancing, they love that exercise because as they dance, whatever their movement, whatever their rhythm is, their core is always engaged. They know when they're dancing, yes, they're moving their feet, yes, they're moving their hands, but really, and one time I showed a bunch of hula dancers. They put the bands on and they said, we're never taking this off. Because the control that they had as they're moving, they really, really felt their hips and their core. So, but that also works for people who simply want a tighter stomach, maybe a smaller waist size. So those are 3 very simple exercises.
And I'm also hearing, as people are listening to this, especially people still have their parents that are alive and aging parents. I mean, this is a really accessible exercise. Even if your parents are just like trying to make sure they can get up and balance and stand upright and, do that kind of stuff. I mean, throwing these bands on would probably make those chair squats or whatever physical therapy, occupational therapy 100 times more effective, than maybe in thousands of magnitude more effective if they didn't have that. So that's cool. How often do you use KAATSU personally? Like, what is your routine? Are you putting this on every single day? And as a second to that, walk us through what an average session looks like using your actual KAATSU bands.
So myself and what we call our veteran users, our power users, we're typically using it twice a day. One session of the day is a little more vigorous than the second session of the day. I'm a early riser, so for me, my more vigorous session of KAATSU is in the morning. In the evening or the afternoon, where I am speaking now, I'm simply sitting and letting the bands inflate and deflate. So one session it can be more vigorous. The second session, which I prefer, is a relaxing session. I'm not doing anything physical. I'm just allowing my hands to get engorged in blood, or my legs as I'm sitting down, reading, researching, talking, or in this case, podcasting with you.
Yeah.
And so that session can range anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. The hour session would be 6 sets, what we call a set on the arms, and then 6 sets on the legs, roughly a half an hour each. For me, I really enjoy that while I'm sitting down, pounding out emails or what have you, because I'm really killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right.
I mean, it's, I'm here speaking with you, and although I have it on my right arm just for demonstration purposes, I'm actually getting a very good pump on my right arm.
Yeah.
And so we call that double stacking. My main objective in this hour is to speak with you and converse about KAATSU. But secondarily, I'm actually getting a good workout.
That's cool.
Typically, our power users do it twice a day. Again, when I say vigorous, it could be a walk around the neighborhood. It could be washing, dishes. It could be something very simple. But it also could be, some kind of resistance exercise. It could be, walking up and down stadium steps or doing burpees, whatever you prefer. Some people are Division I athletes. They actually use it in the exercise that they do. So baseball players will actually be taking batting practice with the bands on.
Yeah.
Pitchers would be throwing the ball with the bands on. Basketball players will be shooting free throws and practicing their 3-point shot. So depending on what level you are, you can do one or the other. But those athletes still, their second session of the day would be a focus on, calming themselves down, utilizing KAATSU while they're relaxed and sitting to activate their parasympathetic nervous system. So typically, our most veteran users use it twice a day for 15 to 60 minutes a session. That seems like a lot, but when you incorporate this double stacking concept, you're not really taking time out of your day to do KAATSU. You are incorporating KAATSU into your day.
Hey, it's Dr. Ray. I want to quickly pause this episode to thank you for listening to this Fit Father podcast. I am just blown away at how amazing this podcast has become. I had no idea when I started FFP around 10 years ago that it would grow into such an impactful mission. And I want to let you know that I am so grateful to be connected to you in this lifetime. And on behalf of me and my entire team, we are so grateful to be in your life, helping you get and stay healthier for your family. That's what I want to share. Just some gratitude from my heart to yours. Let's get back to today's episode. That's really cool. So let's say someone continued doing their classic Fit Father, Fit Mother workouts, which would be like some strength training and cardio all in one. They could literally just add in KAATSU just for a sitting at night or during work or something secondary as a secondary workout for the cardiovascular system that also enhances recovery and helps the nervous system. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And they could actually incorporate KAATSU in the workout.
Yeah.
Now they would put the pressure low because obviously they're doing something very vigorous or intense. So, you'd want a low pressure, but gradually over time, just like we see our soldiers or our athletes, everybody starts out of a low pressure and then you gradually build up. And, when you were using the different bands, as Dr. Sato, the inventor, did back in the 60s, I mean, before he came up with it, we had no idea how tight to put on the bands, where to put on the bands, etc. So you went through the same type of self-experimentation as the inventor did.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is everybody goes through that self-experimentation. We have very, very elite athletes, people who have been in the NBA or NFL for years, sometimes a decade or more. They use a very low pressure. And sometimes we have a high school kid or someone who's overweight and they have a very high pressure.
Yeah.
KAATSU is actually a measure of your vascularity, of your elasticity of your vascular tissue, as opposed to pure muscle or pure strength. They go hand in hand, but really when you put the bands on, I can never guess how high a pressure someone is doing just by visually looking at them. I'll have some studs that can't handle high pressure, and I'll have some people who they don't look like they have worked out since high school. And they're at a high pressure. So, and that's what I mean by self-experimentation. You put the bands on and you try, start at low, go to medium, go to high, and there's somewhere in between is optimal for you.
Nice. Let's tie this into cardiovascular health and fitness, because I think you've made the point, but let's make it a little more directly. And just some physiology, like as we get older, when aging happens in a way that we don't desire, we typically get stiff, we lose hydration, the tissues become calcified, our arteries, which normally have that smooth muscle, which can expand, get stiff, and sometimes we have plaque inside. And what you're basically saying is someone who can handle higher pressure on the KAATSU application has a vascular system that has the ability to move, to expand more, because we can accommodate that increased pressure with some vascular expansion, which again engorges the capillaries, those end really important small vessels, but also like you just want to have a cardiovascular system that's flexible and not stiff and rigid. And this is a way to train that. I mean, of course, lifting weights, running does too, but can we get into like just the heart health benefits? Are there benefits to nitric oxide that come in secondary to this and other things like that, like heart health on this outside of fitness?
Yeah. So when I was being mentored by Dr. Sato, we had a 10-year, very intense research project before we even launched outside of Japan. And that was with a team of cardiologists, because KAATSU really is, if you look at our key patent, a way to strengthen the vascular tissue. And, most people think, they see the veins of their arms or their legs, and they think that's where all the blood is. Most of the blood in the human body is in the very, very small capillaries. Those are the little tiny branches of our vascular system. And that's what causes, when you do KAATSU, your hands or your legs to get a pink or a red color. The pinker, the redder it is, the more elastic you are. And so if you think about it, you've got a heart that's about the size of your fist. And when that's pumping out blood, just like the piping in your home, where your air conditioning or your heating, you want those ducts, the pipes, to be either as big as possible or as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
Now, as we age, yes, we have calcification, plaque, and you name it, but you can offset that by having this increased elasticity. So when the heart does eject the blood, it is actually flowing through the body very, very efficiently. And we do that all the time with athletes and soldiers. So whether it's a boxer or whether it's a Navy SEAL, etc., we say, you don't have to go for a run. You can if you want, and all of them do. But in the cases where, let's say you're in the off season or preseason or in the middle of the season, and for whatever reason, maybe they're not going to go for that 2-mile run. That's okay. You can go for a 1-mile KAATSU walk, where that vascular tissue is being exercised just as much as a run. And especially for our older users, many of them have joint issues, their hip, their knee, and their ankle.
Yeah.
That pounding that they used to do in their 20s and 30s, it's not what they want to do now. They still want to get out and enjoy the fresh air. They want to enjoy that cardiovascular experience that they have. So in these cases, put on the KAATSU bands, allow the pressurization to enable the vascular tissue to expand and contract as if they were running.
Yeah.
And so, when you have 70-year-olds, they don't have some Nike shoes to go run. They have some, sneakers. Put the KAATSU bands on and you can see them walk. And what we really enjoy hearing and seeing are people who say, Steve, before I started KAATSU, I couldn't walk up 3 flights of stairs without getting out of breath. Maybe they were muscular, but 3 flights of stairs, they started to feel their heart beat hard and they started to breathe heavy. Now I go up 3 flights of stairs and my heart rate hasn't increased that much. Why is that? Why? Your heart is getting slightly stronger, but it's the pipes.
Yeah.
It's a vascular system that is becoming much more elastic, much more efficient at carrying your blood and all the nutrients that we have in our body. So that is a real core part of KAATSU.
Really well said. And I think I want people to really understand this is like, as the main pipes, like the aorta that comes off the heart, and then it branches into these major arteries and eventually gets down into these capillaries so tiny that like a blood cell's barely getting through that end oxygen exchange that happens when a red blood cell is dropping off oxygen in a small capillary is ultimately the whole name of the game. Like, it's cool that it goes through the big vessels, but we got to get to that small exchange. And if you can get more efficient oxygen exchange at the end, you're getting oxygen to the metabolically active tissues to support the mitochondria and producing ATP. And consequently, if that's not happening well in the capillaries, the heart has to try to pump and compensate and work harder. Heart rate has to increase. It's going to get feedback on that, right? I mean, sometimes we even increase blood pressure to try to drive more into the capillaries. But imagine if we had better end range, exchange of the oxygen, everything works better. Brain health, right? Same thing's happening in the brain. So that's so cool. I hope people are really understanding like what this could look like. And I want to know too, I'm thinking now as a dad too, my daughter's young. It's not time to load her spine with exercise, but I imagine it could be done with young kids too, to go on a walk or run or to play and do a little KAATSU. Has there been any research or studies on using this in like young people, like below the age of 10 or something like this?
We've done KAATSU as young as 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's generally, though, limited to if they break something.
Yeah.
Break a bone, because their bodies are developing so quickly anyway. Mm-hmm. They don't really need this robust hormonal response,
Sure.
especially high school boys, for example. They're just, and girls, they're this hormonal machine. Now, that being said, when they do get injured, and we see this a lot with high school girls who have ACL tears. Yeah. We see it a lot with boys who skateboard or, do crazy things as high school boys do, and they break things. They break a thing, they have a cast. The first day is sort of cool. And then after that, it's like, oh man, when do I get this cast off? Right. So for those younger people, and 11, 12, 13 years old, it's generally used for injury rehabilitation. Once they get to high school and they are, focused on a particular athletic sport or it could be dance, it could be cheerleading, what have you. We even have musicians. We have pianists. Yeah. We have guitar players. We have bass players. We have a number of people who, when we talk about athletic performance, it doesn't only mean on the baseball field or the football field. It spans human activity. And so for those people, generally when they get to high school and they are serious about their sport or their performance, that's when they start using KAATSU in the 3 main areas. 1, rehabilitation. 2, recovery. So recovery from a hard workout or a competition. And 3, with their particular activity. Is it moving your fingers more fluidly on a piano or on a guitar, or is it throwing a football, or is it throwing a baseball? So usually in high school, we start to see a lot of athletes, serious-minded athletes, those athletes who want to compete in college or possibly get a college scholarship. In college, it's unbelievable what the kids do. As you can imagine, in college, you start dating, you start, well, not in high school too, but, you start looking around, you start being very conscious of your physical appearance. So we have lots of guys and girls who, they want to get pumped up right before the Friday night date or what have you. And so it's amazing to me how people have started to use KAATSU in ways that really surprised me. And they're all using this concept of increasing the vascular tissue, leads to a toning of the muscle, and this robust hormonal response. Some of that is beta endorphin, some of it is adrenaline, some of it is testosterone, things to perk you up. And then, you go over to the parents of these tweens and parents of these college students. They're making, corporate presentations. They're getting ready for a YouTube talk. They're getting ready for, some graduation speech. Yep. They're back in the ready room doing KAATSU, preparing themselves, metabolically speaking, for a performance.
So if you were to do that before a talk, let's say you are going to give a big speech, what exactly would you do? Would you put it on your legs and try to do a 30-minute session? Like what exactly would you do in that instance?
Yeah, very interesting. So in our research, we found out that when I have this on, I take the bands off, we get the peak hormonal response about 12 minutes after I take off the bands. Okay. So we always recommend, and we do this at the Olympics. We've done this at the NBA dunk contest. We teach the athletes, use the bands in this cycle mode, pressure on, pressure off, Some people are, in front of a mirror practicing their speech. Some people are just, meditating and calming down. If you're a basketball player, you're probably doing some stretching and other things. Do that pressure on, pressure off, pressure on for at least 15 minutes. Then take off the bands, ideally 12 minutes before the gun goes off or, the bell goes on to start whatever you're going to do. So that's typically 15 to 30 minutes, the KAATSU cycle mode, we call it. Take them off approximately 12 to 15 minutes before you go on stage or before you get on the field, and you are metabolically, hormonally optimized for the best performance of your life.
Nice. That's super cool. So would the guy in the NBA dunk contest, would they have it on their arms or their legs or both? Can you do both?
Yes, you don't do both together. Generally, if you're a leg-dominated athlete and your performance, let's say a triple jumper, a high jumper, or someone going to the dunk contest, you would use it on your legs.
Yep.
But we also have guys that are in the 3-point contest or the pass, kick, the football drills. We have swimmers, we have wrestlers, we have track and field athletes. So if you're a discus thrower, for example, you're first doing it in the arms and then the legs because you're using all 4 limbs very, in a very perfected technique.
Yep.
So a golfer would do the same. We have many golfers who do the arms, then do the legs. They stretch. They go out on the links and they do their thing.
Nice. All right, run me through a scenario if someone's 55 years old, has knee pain. They feel like their knees just gotten worse and worse over time. They have struggled to do squats and certain exercises because it's hard to load. It can hurt. How would we use this technology in that instance?
So in those, I would recommend them starting out, I would say the first 2 or 3 weeks doing 1 KAATSU session a day. Literally, that's 7 days a week. If you skip a day here and there, that's okay. Frequency and regularity is absolutely key. Just like our sleep, just like our circadian rhythm, you want that normal, regular pattern. And once you incorporate it into your lifestyle, that's not a problem. Start off with your arms, 20 to 30 minutes. And then on your legs, I would go maybe 30 to 40 minutes on the legs. Anything that hurts, any movement that hurts, avoid. You can sit and simply extend your legs out. If that doesn't hurt, then as you extend your legs out, contract your glutes, contract your quads, contract your hamstrings, and do movements that don't hurt. If walking is okay, walk. If walking it's painful to walk, then don't do KAATSU in movements that cause pain. That's a signal from your body saying, hey, why don't you lay off this for a second or for a period of time. So first arms, then legs. On the legs, you do whatever physical therapy, whatever movements make sense for you that don't involve pain. After 2 or 3 weeks, you can up that to 2 sessions a day. And in that process, you'll find that the pressure that you can apply on the bands becomes greater and greater and greater. You will start seeing and feeling initially a pumped up feeling, then an increase either flexibility or mobility. If it's and then depending on how they're feeling, they can always call the KAATSU experts that we have in the company, and they can walk you through. Okay, that's stage 1 of your rehab or recovery. Okay, let's move it up to stage 2. Some of that might involve aquatherapy. If you can find a pool that's 3 feet deep, that you're not swimming, you're just walking with the bands on. These are neoprene, so they are waterproof. And this is what a lot of soldiers and a lot of major league and NFL football players do. They have their aqua pools. They have a lot of lower body injuries. They don't want to add any more load, and being buoyant in water is a great way, combined with KAATSU, to maintain that strength and stamina. So there are many different ways that person can do. And then after 3 weeks, you start incorporating that into your daily lifestyle, and you're off and running.
Sounds really cool. And to kind of recap on what you personally do, you do it in the morning as part of your morning exercise, and then you have the stationary evening session where you're basically double stacking on something. And
correct.
That's what you do. Nice.
Yes.
Okay. And so let's talk about the device itself in kind of the end of this conversation. Like, there's going to be links in the show notes where people can go to your site and where to purchase that if they're very interested. Like, how much, generally speaking, are these devices? What does it come when people buy them? And like, let's get into some of the logistics of that if someone wants to actually start trying this and buying one for their family.
Yeah. So there are, I have the 2 armbands here. I'm showing them. And then they come with 2 armbands, 2 leg bands, and a control unit. And then they come with a variety of teaching materials, a user manual. You can call us up, you can email us, and you can ask us, I want to do ABC, and we give you the protocols or the applications that you can do. We have plenty of videos that we also send out for people who want something very specific. So that unit we call the C3. C stands for cycle. It's a 3rd generation. And then we just came out with a Bluetooth model. This is when there are no tubes. So the first unit had tubes. Sometimes these tubes get in the way, especially if you've had a stroke, if you're feeble, or you want to do something complex. Maybe you're a CrossFit athlete or you're a golfer. The tubes can get in the way. In that case, we developed what we call the B2 model. B stands for Bluetooth. And this is the same thing, except now it is controlled. The control unit is actually on the band itself. And then you use your phone to actually tell the band what to do. And that's becoming a popular model. The reason why is then that data from your device is in your phone, and that can be shared by your coach, by your classmates, teammates, physical therapist, physician, etc. So the first one is $1,000, and the second one is $2,000. So the connected one with tubes is $1,000. The B2 that's all Bluetooth, it's got a variety of functions there that are very, very detailed, and that is twice as expensive at $2,000.
And I mean, I personally, as someone who's used blood flow restriction training for years, like, know the value of it, and I do incorporate it. And I actually have one of your more original models of the tubed one before, and it's for someone who hears this and is like, man, that seems expensive. Like, recap again how you respond to that in terms of just some of the benefits. I guess it's going to be a nice way to kind of summarize the power of this and why for you would stand and say $1,000, like, this is a no-brainer for what this could do for you. Like, give me your take on someone who's thinking like, man, like, I was interested, but like, that's pretty expensive. Do I actually want to do this? Is it going to work? So please respond to that.
So if you're using it twice a day, so that's approximately 700 sessions a year, that's basically $1.30 each session. The $1.30 investment in yourself, in your vascularity and muscularity, will really be absolutely valuable, especially in the second half of your life. For a professional athlete, for someone who's an NCAA athlete, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely no-brainer. Their performance, they will invest in themselves in order to perform at a higher level. For those of us in our 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we're looking at a limited time here on Earth.
Right.
How can we spend this time, this remaining time we have, pain-free and as strong and as physically capable as possible? If you think about what KAATSU does and how it does it, while you're sitting at your computer, while you're writing a book, you're not interrupting anything. You don't have to get out of your house, drive to the local gym, work out, and then come back home. You could do it right in the comfort of your home. And that is a lot of value to people who actually see, well, yeah, it's $1,000. Geez, that's a lot of food on the family table. But if you think about the long-term impact of your vascularity and your muscularity, obviously for our user base, they find it's a very good investment, great investment. And that's how we've grown. We grow because people use our product, they talk to their neighbors, their friends, their coworkers, and then it's an organic growth.
Cool. Well, this was an awesome conversation. Like, I'm inspired. I'm going to tell you just in full confidence, I have your KAATSU products and I have not been using them daily. And I'm just thinking like, why haven't I been using them daily? And so I will start to use, the bands daily. And I'm grateful for knowing that it doesn't just have to be in a workout application like I traditionally thought, like get the dumbbell and do the blood flow curls. Now it's just every day, use it. Go on my morning walk, put the KAATSU on.
Absolutely.
And that sounds like a really cool way to do it.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Steven. And again, we're going to have links in the show notes to where people can check out the KAATSU site and pick up the bands and start playing around with this. And I'm grateful to learn from you. And I just want to say you've lived a very interesting and powerful life. And this is definitely a form of exercise insofar as all the internet's like this workout, that workout. I mean, those are variations on traditional training. Like this is something that's so unique and obviously taps into the body in a very deep way in the cardiovascular system, the hormonal response. So this is really cool that you're doing this work. I appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you.